are delighted tonight to have the third annual Alan Kerbel Memorial Lecture. This is a lecture that brings in a different speaker each year about this time of year in memory of Alan Kerbel. And we are delighted and honored that Mr. Kerbel's family is here tonight and Jeff Kerbel, Alan's son, is here to say a few words. You'll have to project your voice, Jeff, until we get the microphone working. But if you would come forward and say a few words, we'd appreciate it very much.
I think I can project long enough for this one. Thank you, Paul, and I just want to thank the University of Waterloo. It's an honor, it's our privilege to be able to finance this group of talks for the Jewish Studies program. This is the third one. It's not a rush hour trip out here is not fun, but it's it's a lovely town and a great dinner you give us, and the speakers are always great to listen to, and it's really not so much in my father's memory, but more in his honor. And he was fascinated by Jewish topics and Jewish history, and it's something that I think is worth studying. And I think it's certainly the religion is the basis of a lot of our religions today, and I think it's probably worth taking a few minutes to find out where the roots of some of the things that we agree on and the disputes we have in the various religions. And I think that Waterloo is probably a great place to do it. It's a great university. One I certainly was on my list when I was a kid, so never made it. But I want to thank everybody for showing up, and we hope to be part of this for a great many years in the future. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you so much, Jeff. I would like now to call on the Joseph and Wolf Lebovic Chair of Jewish Studies, Jim Diamond, to introduce our speaker tonight. Jim?
Thanks, Paul. Welcome again to the Alan Kerbel Memorial Lecture, and I'd like to echo Paul's thanks to the Kerbel family. And I had the pleasure of having dinner with Jeff and Diane, and I can tell you it was one of the most enjoyable dinner conversations I've had in a long time. And if you have the opportunity, be a dinner mate of them. Tonight's lecture. Before I introduce the speaker, I just thought I have the podium. There's something I have to say. I'm in St. Jerome's here. St. Jerome's has hosted many of our lectures. When my friends are under attack, and especially when my friends are under attack for espousing noble sentiments, I will stand by their side. There is, you've probably read about this fray about Pope Benedict's remarks. All I want to say is that what Pope Benedict actually said in his speech, and not what you hear reported in the papers, is probably one of the most inspiring, erudite, and eloquent pleas for civilization to resort to reason and dialogue among cultures. Does that surprise you? That is actually what his speech was about. And I stand here, honestly, I'm not saying this because St. Jerome's is giving us the space, and has been such a good friend of ours and so welcoming to Jewish studies. I stand here with the Pope because the stakes are very high in this. If you don't stand with the Pope, then you stand with the voices of ignorance and irrational thought. So this is not the forum to discuss the Pope's remarks, but I just thought I'd preface that. Angels. When I was thinking about this, angels, I've been a lawyer in the past. The Pope, it all coalesced into a joke. So a lawyer and a pope both die at the very same moment. They both go up to heaven. The pope, they get, after their initial initiation seminar, the pope is handed his standard regulation clothing, toga, and wings, and the lawyer gets this Gucci shoes and gold wings. Then they're the pope is put up in the standard replica Holiday Inn room, and the lawyer is put up in an 18-room mansion with the whole staff, and then they're treated to their first meal, and the pope gets his TV kosher meal, and the lawyer gets this 10-course meal with caviar and truffles at the end. And the lawyer's starting to get wind that there must be a mistake here. So he talks to the head angel and he says to him, "What's this? There must be some kind of mistake here. You know, the Pope and, I'm getting all this great treatment." He says, the angel says to him, No. We've had a lot of popes here, but you're the first lawyer we've ever had here." So, without any, let me introduce our speaker tonight, Rachel Turkienicz. You're in for a real treat. Rachel holds a PhD in Talmudic and Midrashic Studies from Brandeis University. She is presently a professor at York University in the Department of Education and teaches Jewish education and rabbinics. She is a very, very, very popular speaker, very much in demand, very engaging speaker. She is a co-founder of an important school in Toronto, the Toronto Heschel School. She is the founder and director of a new institute of adult Jewish studies called the Learning Center. She's at the forefront of Jewish education, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce her to you on the topic of angels. And I'd like to, just in light of my first remarks, to dedicate this lecture to a quote from Pope Benedict's speech that you did not hear in the papers. And this I'm actually thinking of adopting as my motto for Jewish studies. The courage, and this is what the Pope has promoted in his speech, the courage to engage the whole breadth of reason and not the denial of its grandeur. This is the program with which a theology grounded in biblical faith enters into the debates of our times. That is what the Pope stood for in his speech. And with that, and in that spirit, I introduce to you our speaker tonight, Rachel Turkienicz.
Thank you. I'm going to try to speak up, but if you can't hear me at any point in the back, just sort of wave, and then I'll forget why you're waving and embarrass you. But if you could just let me know if you can't hear me, then I'll try to speak up even more. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm really very honored to have received the invitation to share the evening together. And I'm already very impressed, and it's not that fantastic dinner and this wonderful room and the environment and everybody who's here tonight. It's putting the podium next to the step. I have to say that was a stroke of genius, because often I'm challenged to even just look over the podium, but I'm able to see everyone, and it's wonderful to be able to see everyone. I want us to get right to our topic of angels. It's something that's intrigued me for a very, very long time, and I know that when I speak with people and the word angel comes up, there's a spark of interest. You can see it. It's something we've all encountered in media or in art or in literature, in culture, in religion. Somewhere we've come across it. And yet when we ask ourselves, and what do I really, really know about it? Not as much as we think. So if I can paint a picture for a moment, you come home from a hard day's work. You open the door, and the smell of dinner immediately comes to you, and you stop, and you're wondering. So you walk into the house, and the table is set beautifully. There's salad on, there's everything on, dinner is ready, the house is clean, and there are your children standing there with these big, beautiful smiles on their faces, and you turn to them and you say, "What lovely little angels you all are." And nothing could be further from the truth. But on the way home, as you were driving on the 401, oh, I think we've got the microphones now, okay. as you were driving on the 401 and you're going under one of those bridges on the 401, you glance up and there's this rather odd-looking individual standing on the bridge with a big placard that says, "There are creatures among us. Beware of the unseen." And the person looks like they're not dressed the way everybody else is dressed, and they're all disheveled and not quite really fitting into anything aside from standing on the 401 bridge with that big placard. And you drive by on your way home to these angelic children. But the truth is that in all likelihood, the statement on that placard was far more correct than calling those children angelic children. Our assessment of falsely angelic children and a truthful, somewhat creepy message from somebody standing on a bridge over the 401 more reflects the view of the sages of ancient Israel when they're trying to figure out what are the creatures among us. What are these beings? Rabbinic literature traces the appearance of angels within the Hebrew Bible, back to the ancestral generation, back to Abraham, and even back to the narrative of creation itself, in a quest to understand when did they first appear? When do we first see that angels are in the universe at all? And then when do we see them begin to function? By carefully analyzing each appearance in text, the ancient sages of ancient Israel structure a universe of complex, interactive angelic beings that have relationships with us all the time, whether we know it or not. But this universe is filled with pleasure and danger, and most of it, according to rabbinic text, is best left unknown. There's a text in the Zohar that says, "Said Rabbi Shimon, alas for the blindness of the sons of men, all unaware as they are how full the earth is of strange and invisible beings and hidden dangers, which could they but see, they would marvel how they themselves can exist on the earth." If we really knew, say the ancient sages, of all of the beings around us, all of the angelic beings that crowd into the universe, we wouldn't be able to function. The stories that I've had people say to me when I teach about angels, interesting that it's at the end of the lecture that people come up to me and they look around to make sure they're the last ones in line so that they can talk to me and that nobody else is going to overhear. And that's when I start to hear the stories of people with their personal accounts of things they've seen or things that have happened to them. And they come and they say to me, "Do you think that was an angel? Could that have been an angel? What was that?" Or, "I've always known that was an angel." And there's one instance that happened actually back in February with a student of mine. I walked in to teach a class and she was visibly upset. And we spoke for a little bit and she said to me that she's not sure what to do with something that has happened in her life. It's a very difficult story. She has an elderly parent, a father, who has been in the hospital for some time and is suffering from Alzheimer's and an advanced stage of it and really hasn't been aware for quite some time of where he is or the family members or their names. He's just at that particular stage. Her mother had passed away about 2 or 3 weeks earlier, and the family was trying to decide whether to tell the father. Because to tell him if he can get the information, he won't hold on to the information. And if he does get it for even a moment, it's just going to plunge him into grief and sorrow. For what end? Toward what end? And so they're trying to figure out whether to share that information with him or not. And she told me that the day before she was sitting in the hospital room with her sister, and she says the father turned to them and had a moment of clear lucidity, called each of them by name. And she said he had not done that for over a year. Called each of them by name and said to them, "I know about Mummy. I don't want you to worry. Last night, God came, no, not God, an angel, and said to me what happened to Mummy, but it's okay because in 6, I'll be with her." That was all he said, and then within 2 or 3 minutes, he was uncommunicative again. And the two siblings looked at each other and said, if you had not been sitting here to hear this, I would even have doubted that he said it. She didn't know what to do with that. 6 what? What angel? What's going on? Who could have told him? They're trying to figure all this out. We were in touch with each other. 6 days went by. The father is fine. She starts to calm down. 6 weeks go by. The father is fine. So they start to let the incident go. I saw her in class this week. She came up to me. She gave me a hug. She wiped a tear away. She said her father passed away in August, 6 months after telling her of that incident. And we just looked at each other. Those are the kinds of stories that I hear after we learn about angels. There are personal stories that get shared, but they get shared very quietly. And people, by and large, are still nervous in our society about sharing these kinds of stories because you don't want to be perceived as the person on the bridge over the 401 with the big placard. So although there's a far cry, we are very sensitive to it. And it goes back to that rabbinic text. If we truly knew, say the ancient sages, if we truly knew, we would be overwhelmed. We wouldn't be able to process that information. We wouldn't be able to exist in the world around us, and therefore, it's hidden from us. So what are these angels? They are everything we could imagine. Technically, the word itself means messenger. And therefore, anything that brings about the successful mission of the messenger is available as tools of the trade. There's a text in the Midrashic volumes that says, quote, "The Lord God of differing manifestations of will." That's a quote from Hosea. "The will he exercises upon his angels. When he so wills it, he has them come into being seated. At times he has them come into being standing. At other times he makes them in the likeness of women or of men. At times as wind, and still other times as fire. When by his command they act as messengers, they are made of winds. When they minister before him, they are made of fire. As is said, who makes winds your messenger, the flaming fire your ministers?" They can be anything that helps the mission along. When God commissions an angel and sends an angel out to do something, then everything is the tool of the trade. That pesky snowstorm last year, where you're sitting in traffic, not understanding why they couldn't have predicted the snowstorm before you got on the road, right? But you're sitting there and the snowstorm, and this opens that entire door. Is that really a snowstorm? Or is it perhaps a tool of the trade where the snow itself is the angel to detain 2 other people somewhere else so that they can finish accomplishing what they needed to accomplish? And according to this ancient text, snow falls, rain falls. Anything within the created universe can actually be an angel that is trying to complete a mission. So if they're not flesh and blood in and of themselves, because they're not, they will only take flesh and blood form if, again, it facilitates the mission. If they're not flesh and blood, then what are they? What is the essence? What is it that they're made of? And again, we turn to text. Rabbi Yochanan said, "It is written, dominion and fear are with him. He makes peace in his high heavens." That's from the book of Job. Dominion alludes to Michael, who is made of snow, while fear alludes to Gabriel, who is made of fire. What is the significance of the statement that they are with him? They are wholly devoted to him. The latter does not injure the former, nor the former the latter. Rabbi Abin said that the matter does not end at the conciliation between angel and angel. He makes peace even within the person of each angel, who possesses 5 mutually antagonistic features. His body was also like Tarshish, and now they're quoting text. His face is the appearance of lightning, yet neither did the latter extinguish the former, nor the former extinguish the latter. And they go on and on to talk about it. And what they're saying is that while you have some angels made of snow and some angels made of fire, Michael and Gabriel, how on earth are Michael and Gabriel friends? Snow and fire. One of them is going to damage the other. One of them is going to consume the other or extinguish the other. How can they coexist? How can they be friends? And the answer is, that is the essence of harmony and peace on high, is that these two, what we understand to be conflicting elements, manage to coexist and thrive. And then they go one step beyond, saying it's not just about between the angels, but within each angel. That within each angel are 5 antagonistic elements that in the world as we know it should not coexist. And yet, for an angel to exist, it must find a way to harmonize inside. It must bring peace internally before it can possibly begin to move into the world and accomplish a mission in the world. In fact, there are many categories of angels that come through the text. The messenger angels, the one that I've been referring to mostly, those are the ones that appear mostly in the Hebrew Bible. Those are the ones in Abraham's time, when Abraham is sitting, and the text says that 3 visitors approach Abraham, and the sages are watching very closely, because although 3 visitors approach, only 2 leave. And 2 visitors leave Abraham's side in text and arrive in Sodom. 2 arrive, 1 leaves. So of course you'd be looking at that text thinking, where are they going? 3 of them come, 2 of them leave? Where'd the 3rd one go? 2 of them arrive at the next location, 1 of them leaves? What's going on? And we begin to understand that when the mission of a messenger angel is complete, the messenger angel ceases to exist. 3 arrive at Abraham's tent. The mission of one of those angels was to inform Abraham and Sarah of a coming conception and birth. And once that information is transmitted, that angel ceases to be. 2 leave. They go to Sodom. One of the angels was there in order to see, as the text told us, God is evaluating the region, what's going on. One of the angels was there to get Lot and his family out safely. Once the evaluation is done, that angel disappears. It ceases to exist. 1 mission, 1 angel. And when it's accomplished, it's done. I have seen that interpretation move into discussions of things in life that we find very difficult to grasp and understand. Things like the illness of a child, the death of a child, a stillbirth. Where that understanding moves into it and says, this was a messenger. This was a messenger angel who accomplishes the mission with 1 breath, who accomplishes the mission at the age of 2 or 22, or doesn't meet the person they need to meet and accomplish the mission until 52 or 82. We don't know. But this idea of messenger angels among us who are there to accomplish 1 mission, and when that mission is fulfilled, they cease to be. The text also tells us of temple ministers, the seraphim and cherubim. Seraphim are fire angels. The ancient Hebrew word tells us that. They're burning all the time. Cherubim, kruvim, are not the chubby, lovely, pinch the cheek, want to have you with me, hug, hug, hug kind of things. The description in the text is exactly the opposite. They're fierce. You wouldn't want them anywhere near you. And later we're going to discuss how did we get from that description to what we now think of when we hear the word cherubim. But these are temple ministering angels. That is their job. They do not deal delicately with us. They're not that concerned with us. They actually look quite fierce to us in the ancient world and in the ancient text. We would stay away from them as best as we could. Then there are the multiplying angels. That's what's known as the myriads. When we talk about the myriads, the tens of thousands, the multiplying angels, they're there to keep the population up. They're just generating more and more and more angels, because you need angels. You need hosts of angels. They're going to be doing things. They're busy. So do angels, in fact, fall in love and make other angels? Yes. Do they do it the way we do it? Probably not. But we've never actually been invited in to know. So we don't know. But we know that they are generating angels all the time. We generate angels all the time. We also kill them all the time. But we don't know on a conscious level when we're generating them and when we kill them. So we're actually figuring all this out as best as we can, but it's very much a hidden realm in that regard. There are guardian angels. Every nation has a guardian angel. No two nations can go to war in the world without the guardian angels battling on high. As above, so below. We're living in mirrors all the time. Everyone has a personal guardian angel, not sitting on your shoulder. If they were sitting on your shoulder, then they're being lazy on the job. So you don't want your personal angel sitting on your shoulder, your guardian angel. You want that angel aware, looking around all the time, being very, very aware of what's going on with you, because the guardian angel gets one shot at it. You can lose a guardian angel. It's not something that everybody has all the time. It says in the Talmud, Rabbeinu said, something else they had been discussing, but this proves that when one is terrified and knows not why, though he has not seen anything, his guardian angel has. So you know those feelings sometimes where you're sitting and everything's fine. Everything's fine, nothing's changed, but suddenly you start to get very tense and very nervous, and you can't figure out why. And you look around, everything's fine, but you're tense and you're nervous. So the rabbis 2,000 years ago were saying, well, I know why you're tense and you're nervous. You're not seeing anything, but your guardian angel certainly saw something and has communicated that to you, and that's why you're tense and you're nervous. So you can do one of two things. You can ignore it, or you can respond to it. What should he do, says the Talmud? Jump 4 cubits to the side. Okay? Step number 1, move. Move. If you're standing there and you're suddenly feeling tense and you don't know why, and the answer is, according to the Talmud, because your guardian angel senses danger, then move. Get out of the way. Something's going on and you don't know what it is. So trust your guardian angel and move to the side. And then it says, alternatively, let him read the Shema. And the Shema is a liturgical prayer, a statement of faith. So they're giving 2 possible answers here. Number 1, physically, get out of the way. Number 2, you're not going to physically get out of the way. That means there's spiritual danger. So make a declaration of faith, because a declaration of faith will in fact, will in fact prevent the spiritual danger. It will strengthen your guardian angel. It will do everything, because perhaps the danger that it's sensing isn't a physical one. Remember that first text, if we only knew. There are all kinds of dangers around us that we can't perceive. And according to these texts, your guardian angel can, and they will communicate it to you. And if there is no physical threat you can see, then make a statement and declaration of faith. But the worst thing you could do is not trust your guardian angel, because that, in fact, lessens it, weakens it, and harms it. It thrives on the relationship of trust. The more that you are trusting of it, the more that you are responding to it, the stronger it becomes. We also have personal names for some of the angels, and those are fixed in the celestial retinue, permanent roles in the world above. Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, these are the names that we're familiar with. They do missions, but they're not mission angels. They have a breadth of fields that they will enact with and interact with, but each of them has an area of specialty. Gabriel's area of specialty is power. Raphael's area of specialty is medicine and healing and health. Each of them has an area of specialty, but they will also do other things. They are quite powerful in that way. And we know there is a redeeming angel. We know about the redeeming angel from the text that we have on Jacob the patriarch, and it is Jacob the patriarch who gives us most of the information on angels in the Hebrew Bible, because he of anyone keeps running into them. Every time he's leaving, there's angels. He lies down as he's leaving his home to go to his uncle. He has a dream, there's a ladder, and there's angels. Everywhere he turns around, there's angels. And in fact, what's interesting about that text with the ladder, it says that he's falling asleep, and there's a ladder starting on the ground with its head going up above to the sky. And then it says angels, plural, are going up and coming down the ladder. So we have wonderful ancient rabbinic texts where they sit down and they say, wait a minute, plural angels are going up and plural angels are coming down? That means at least 2 angels are going up while 2 angels are coming down. That means 4 angels on the rung of this ladder at any given time. And now they're going to try to measure out what is the width of an angel. They're going to, every text where there is any mention of it will be analyzed to the point because they want to know everything we can know about what these texts are telling us about these angels. Jacob wrestles with an angel. From Jacob, we understand about border angels. Every time he leaves the land and comes into the land, he's bumping into these angels, and they're patrolling, they're border patrols. In fact, he's being held by one of the angels and wrestles with the angels because he's bringing conflict back with him. We see those through those texts. We also understand from him that you can force a blessing out of an angel. He's the one who grabs an angel and forces a blessing out of an angel. And while he lies on his deathbed, we learn about redeeming angels, and we only learn about it from him. Apparently, everybody's guardian angel, as I said, has one shot at it. When we all stand in judgment in the court on high, the guardian angel will stand there and present a very good case for us. But what if they lose? And they can. And it depends on your relationship with that angel and how strong that angel is, as well as your personal choices that you've made. They can lose. If they lose, everybody gets a redeeming angel, one who can come in and say, I will redeem their life with my own. I will give up my life so that this human being has one more try. It's a redeeming angel. We all get one, and what we understand from Jacob is that we can willingly and voluntarily remove our redeeming angels and assign them to someone else. Jacob on his deathbed says, the angel who redeems me shall move to these young people, when he's talking about his grandchildren. And he's essentially saying, if it is within the divine decree that I die tonight, I don't want my redeeming angel to intervene and give me more time. I'm willing to go tonight. I'm taking my redeeming angel and putting it onto my grandchildren and securing them. So we understand that we can, in fact, use the relationships with angels to secure children, to secure the vulnerable. But it's at our own risk that we do it, and it's at our own peril that we do it. And Jacob is the one who teaches us that. Angels react to what we do all the time, both positively and negatively. Again, it says in the Talmud, it was taught, Rabbi Yossi, son of Rabbi Yehuda, said, 2 ministering angels accompany man on the eve of the Sabbath from the synagogue to his home, one a good angel and one an evil one. And when the man arrives home and finds the lamp burning, the table laid, the couch covered with a beautiful spread, the good angel says, may it be even so on another Sabbath too. And the evil angel unwillingly responds, Amen. But if not, the evil angel says, may it be even so on another Sabbath too. And the good angel unwillingly responds, Amen. This text is saying that they respond to us. They are not proactive, they are reactive. So that when certain moments in your life occur, and there's a good angel and a bad angel, and they're both watching, and you've done something right, the good angel will bless it and say, you should do that again. And the bad angel has no choice now, will say, Amen, do it again. But if we do something wrong, the bad angel says, you should do that again. And the good angel has no choice but to say, Amen, I agree, do it again. They support us when we're good, they support us when we're bad. They can't make us do anything, but sometimes reinforcing behavior establishes patterns. So when they're supporting good behavior, we establish good patterns. When they're supporting bad behavior, we establish bad patterns. They can't make us do it, but they can certainly keep the ball moving. And yet they're our first teachers. It says in the Talmud, a light burns above its head, and it looks and sees from one end of the world to the other, and there is no time in which a man enjoys greater happiness than in those days. For it said, oh, that I were as the months of old, as in the days when God watched over me. And what are the days that make up months but not years? The months of pregnancy, of course. It is taught all the Torah from beginning to end. As soon as it sees the light, the angel approaches, slaps it on its mouth, and causes it to forget all the Torah completely. And according to that text, while in utero, while bodies are forming, souls are forming. And as the souls are forming, the angel assigned to each one of us is teaching us in utero the truths, the concepts, the values, all of the things the soul needs. And then as the light of birth appears, and the baby is now traveling for birth toward the light, the angel stands, slaps us on the mouth. That's that mark we have. So according to ancient text, that's the width of the finger of your angel. It left a mark on you. Just as the belly button is the physical birth scar, this is the spiritual birth scar. The angel comes, slaps us on the mouth, and that act makes us forget everything we learned. And then we're born. The spiritual journey of a lifetime is therefore a journey of rediscovery, not a journey of discovery. And it is the angels that we thank for that, because they begin the teaching before we ourselves actually ever take a breath. Everything in the universe has an angel engaged in a relationship with it. Our deeds create them, and our deeds can kill them. As an example, we have a statement that appears in Talmud about when two friends see each other after not having seen each other for 12 months. You have a friend, you lost touch, 12 months go by, suddenly you see each other again, you're face to face. And it says that the two friends should now make a blessing, thanking God for the resurrection of the dead. Rather odd blessing to make, since clearly neither one of the friends died, or they wouldn't be reuniting after 12 months. So we're not talking about a death. Why on earth would anybody be instructed to make that kind of blessing? And the answer is because everything we do, every relationship that occurs gives birth to an angel. When two people form a friendship, an angel is born. And that angel is the angel of the friendship. And you keep the angel healthy and you keep the angel thriving by putting into the friendship. How long does it take to starve a friendship angel? 12 months. If two friends do not see each other for 12 months, that angel has starved. The angel has died. But when they see each other again, it's an immediate resurrection. Hence the blessing to God for resurrecting the dead. It's not the dead friends, it's the dead angel. And this is going on all the time, and we have no idea. We have an ongoing relationship with them. They guard us, support us, play tricks on us. And beyond that, ancient rabbinic text tells us they're our older sibling. They were created on the second day of creation. We weren't created till the sixth day of creation. So they're created first. They're the older sibling. In fact, there's rabbinic text that says that when God says, let us make humanity, who is God talking to? The answer is the angels. God's turning to the angels and consulting the older sibling, saying, do you think we should make another species, humanity? And by the way, their vote is no. When God says, let's make humanity, the angels said, I really think that's a bad idea. I really think it is. And they go on to say, because that species will not understand truth and they won't understand peace the way we do, because we had to harmonize and make peace within ourselves. And you're reading this text and you're thinking, you know what? Kind of on their side. The argument is a very strong argument, but it's a sibling argument. It's like the parents coming to the older child saying, should we make another? What older child would say, good idea? Every older child is going to say, I think that's a terrible idea. How can you love both of us? And hence, sibling rivalry begins. And that is exactly what we see in ancient text going on between humanity and the angels, sibling rivalry. We're fighting and arguing with each other for God's love, God's attention, and God's affection, just like any siblings would do with the parent. It's like the Smothers Brothers all over again. It's who loves who more. God loves me more, God loves you more, and we argue with the angels through the prophetic literature. That's when we start to see it. Isaiah goes up in one of the prophecies, hears the angels praising God, comes back, and tells everybody, here's what they said. We steal it. It then enters liturgy, but it enters liturgy as a whisper. It's not to be said out loud because we certainly don't want to be telling them we have it. And we end up with this incredible dialogue that's going on where the angelic choir is singing, holy, 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 as they surround God. And then that enters liturgy. And we stand there and say, well, we can say that too. And we say it right back, the same words taken from Isaiah as overheard from the heavenly angelic choir. They composed it. We stole it. The difference between them and us in the sibling rivalry is that we can make statements of faith and they cannot. They can only praise, they can sing, they can respond, but they cannot make statements of faith, and we can. And that draws divine attention. And we certainly let them know it every chance we can through liturgy that we have this trump card. But we have to sit back for a moment and remember that they give us as good as they get. So it's not simply our sitting there stealing all of this and then saying, oh, look what we have. They likewise impact on us in the ways that we've seen. All of this develops into an elaborate portrait from the ancient world that moves through time. It enters the Middle Ages and enters the Christian church, and continues to develop within the Christian church as time moves forward. Christianity develops the concept of a fallen angel and a principal angel named Satan. That is a movement from the angel Satan, which doesn't have a capital S, from the ancient world. The Satan literally means the adversary. And in the ancient world, it means the legal adversary. So while the guardian angel is in the court up high, giving a wonderful case on your behalf, there has to be a prosecutor who's giving the other side to things. That's an angel as well. That's the Satan, the legal adversary. But once we enter the Christian church and the world of the church and understand that the concept of law, the concept of a legal adversary no longer holds because Jesus fulfills the law. And therefore, this idea of having a legal adversary functioning within a system that no longer functions that way. Satan develops into Satan with the capital S, who now becomes the moral adversary, the ethical adversary, and functions in the world that way, with as much power as the other angels have, even more so. While Christianity is developing an understanding of the root of evil and how that manifests through the angelic spheres, because evil is not something that is singularly manifesting. It's pervasive. And it will move in this realm, those realms, and all of the unseen realms. The church is commissioning art. And the art is bringing a visual approachability of many of the other angels. And we start to watch as things move to two polarities. While Satan has the power that he has, and morality and ethics enter the discussion in a way that did not enter in the ancient Jewish texts, likewise, the cherubim start to become more approachable in the visuality of it. That where before they were fierce, they're starting to gain a sense of comfort and approachability. And we watch that develop as one is balanced by the other. The Christian church develops a hierarchy, although the New Testament itself does not outline it as such. By the Middle Ages, it's an emerging hierarchy that has categories that are still present within Christianity today. The archangels, the principalities and powers, the thrones and dominions. These are things that have their root in the ancient world and their root in ancient text. And it's just a development that continues to move forward. Within this view, there's also a sense of grouping. Angels do not appear as solitary beings within this development, but occur in groups of 4 or 7. And there seems to be much more of a sense of otherworldliness to the angelic domain within the church than there was within ancient Israel. Within the church, they're strangers to this world rather than the ancient rabbinic view that had angels appearing through nature and functioning through nature, trying to enter this world as opposed to remaining in an otherworldly sense. And then as time continues to move forward, we have a transition to popular culture, where people will begin to speak of each other and say, oh, this dear departed one, well, now they're an angel in heaven watching over us. No, they're not. They are something else, but no, they're not that. If you were to come to anyone in ancient Israel, within the Jewish tradition or within the Christian world, and you were to say something like that, it's similar to saying, I had a very beloved poodle who passed away, but now he's a duck in heaven. It doesn't work that way. Angels are separate species. They are not dearly departed human beings. Dearly departed human beings are souls. Souls aren't angels. These are very different things. And we go back to that first text, if we only really knew. And we don't, so we simplify, and we comfort ourselves, and we think we know. We are sibling species, according to text, but there's a stark difference between us, and that's what gives us the trump card. We have free will. They do not. An angel can express a preference, can object, can argue, can become angry over something that God wants the angel to do, but in the end, if God commands it, they must do it. There is no choice, unlike, as we know, humanity in the text. This is why they cannot make faith statements. They can sing, they can praise, they can glorify, they can adorn, they can do everything but make a faith statement, because a faith statement must be a free will statement. If it's not a free will statement, it's not a statement of faith, it's a statement of bullying. And if angels do not have free will, they cannot make faith statements. That's us. That's the trump card we have. One of the most lengthy and heartbreaking rabbinic texts deals with the last moments of Moses' life. God is commissioning angels to go out and take Moses' soul. And the text begins and says that first God shuts all the gates of heaven and the gates of prayer, because the power of Moses' prayer would certainly enter. And so God is preparing the upper realms for this crisis, this cataclysmic event. All of the gates are shut, and then God turns, and it says, in that instance, God said to Gabriel, Gabriel, go forth and bring Moses' soul. He, however, replied, Master of the universe, how can I witness the death of him who is equal to 60 myriads, and how can I behave harshly to one who possesses such qualities? Then God said to Michael, go forth and bring Moses' soul. He, however, replied, Master of the universe, I was his teacher and he my pupil, and I cannot therefore witness his death. And then we get 3 pages of ongoing debate and dialogue. At that hour, Moses arose and sanctified himself like the seraphim, and God came down from the highest heavens to take away the soul of Moses, and with him were 3 ministering angels, Michael, Gabriel, and Zagzagel. Michael laid out his bier, Gabriel spread out a fine linen cloth. Michael stood at one side. I believe Michael and Gabriel turned to God and said, I won't do it. And yet, by the end of the text, they are doing exactly what God told them to do. They are witnessing the death when they stood and said openly, I cannot do that. There is no free will. Angels are our older siblings, our teachers, our guardians, our greatest supporters, and our greatest mischief makers. They give their souls for us and seem to truly understand that doing God's work to maintain harmony in the universe is the greatest of all callings. They are the unsung heroes of ancient text. Thank you.
Well, I thank the guardian angel that brought Rachel to us tonight. We have time for some questions. Let me get started, the privilege of having the podium and the microphone. Thank you, thank you, Angel. When you talked about the various guardian angels and angels that even conflict with one another and cooperate with one another, it made me think of the Roman and Greek gods. Have you ever thought about that relationship?
I think that there's an interesting comparison to be made between the view of the Roman and Greek gods and the formation of rabbinic texts, because the time periods and the awareness of one culture and the other. I think what's interesting, or what is of note, as much as the comparisons are maybe similar in certain instances, I think that what's of note is where they're not similar, because that's when you'd sit back and say, well, then where did that come from? Where did the dissimilarity come from? Rather than, we're not surprised when we see the influence and similarities. The dissimilarity occurs in instances such as when we see that the Greek gods or the Roman gods are in conflict and humanity has the repercussions of that conflict. When ancient text talks about the guardian angels of nations in conflict up above, and that impacts on humanity, the difference is that, and it says in text that no one can win a battle below until their guardian angel wins it above. But what is going to make that guardian angel win it above? And that's going to be the relationship the nation had with the guardian angel, because that's going to keep it strong or that's going to weaken it. And that relationship very much necessitates, what are the acts of the nation? Are they positive and good actions? Are they actions that keep that angel strong and keep that relationship strong? And hence that angel is able to encounter the conflict above. When we look at Roman and Greek gods, the question of good deeds and morality doesn't really come into a deciding voice.
Right. Other questions? Judy?
Yeah, since you mentioned the classics, and I don't know how far the rabbis were talking about these, and I don't know the Hebrew word for angel either. Socrates had a daimon. That's the root of the word demon, but it doesn't mean the same thing. Mm-hmm. And it was a voice that told him no. That's all it did. It said, don't do it. Now, are you going to, the rabbis might call that an angel. I'm wondering what you think of that in terms, I mean, this is Greek. Mm-hmm. Okay, this is Athenian, and this is in particular Socrates. Mm-hmm. And he was actually part of the charge of impiety against him, as that he claimed he had this daimon who talked to him. So mm-hmm. Just mm-hmm. comment. Just your comments on that.
Mm-hmm. The rabbinic literature reflects an awareness of Greek culture and Greek philosophy. It's something that the rabbis in the ancient world are debating quite actively as how involved should they be with these Greek concepts. And some of them are more involved and some of the rabbis don't like it, some of them are less involved, but there's certainly an awareness and an involvement. They're focusing internally rather than externally. So they're not going to be looking at the world around them or at something like this concept of a foreigner and then assessing whether that's that foreigner's angel or guardian angel. But the concept that it might be is very much familiar and would be welcomed by them. It wouldn't be a rejected or strange concept.
Mrs. Glick.
How would you relate intuition and dreams to the concept of angels?
Dreams, the text that we have on dreams in the Talmud, dreams are messages. But and there are certain kinds of messages. So some dreams can be prophetic messages, but we no longer live in an age of prophecy, so we wouldn't know what to do with those dreams. There are dreams that, mostly they say dreams are messages you send yourself. And that you would no more walk around unopening your mail than you would walk around without having a dream interpreted. That it's something you want to hear that message. And if you don't hear that message that you're sending yourself, you'll have the dream recur again and again and again because it wants to be heard. And hence a dream is a dialogue you're having with yourself, according to Talmudic literature. Would angels appear in dreams? Probably not, because you're going to dismiss them. And so they really want you to pay attention, if they feel that you need to. Otherwise, the texts tell us they're just as happy that we leave them alone, because we more often hurt them than anything else when we try. So it's, they have their rules of the game and they function that way. And it's very much older and younger siblings. Right? The younger sibling wants to tag along, wants to be there all the time. I want to do what you're doing. It's so much fun. And the older sibling is saying, I'd really rather you just go about your business and just do what you're going to do and let me do what I'm going to do, and we'll be better off that way and we'll take care of each other better that way. And that seems to be their approach.
So how does that relate to intuition?
Oh, intuition. I'm sorry. The sense of intuition is... again, it depends on the kind of intuition, because there's intuitive knowledge that the rabbis attribute not to your angel speaking to you, but much more to your irrational understanding, your irrational connection with knowledge. Intuition is viewed as the irrational connection with knowledge, whereas there's another word they use for the empirical connection with knowledge. So they're separating those two things out, but they're not putting it into the angelic realm. They're putting it elsewhere, actually, which is a whole other lecture, but it's not in the angelic realm. The angels, again, it's that sense, it's not intuition, it's actually a physical, you get tense, you get nervous, you sweat, it's a much more recognizable kind of thing.
Dr. Gutierrez.
What is the nature of an angel? Is the nature of an angel the same nature of the soul, or are they light? Or, you said that sometimes they can appear as bodies, but in the rest of the time, what are they?
They are composites of elements that should be, that are conflicting elements. They are mostly winged, but they don't necessarily, and most of them have more than one set of wings, according to the descriptions from the ancient world, but they don't necessarily use the wings to fly. They use one set of their wings the way we use clothing. And the insinuation is they have gender, and therefore they're using their wings to give privacy to gender. So they're using it in a way we use clothing, but where we use clothing and we have to turn to the world to get it, they have it there. And the closest thing that we can get in a sense of what are they souls? No, they're not. They're conflicting elements that coexist peacefully and then can take whatever form they need.
But then it changes once that it goes into the Christian description, because then after they become divine spirits that have no sex.
Right. That's right. And that's a reflection of Christian theology and philosophy that is developing, because there still is, within every faith development of a theology, you're still going to have those mirrors, as above, so below. And so you do watch the development of the church's theology, not just in terms of understanding the nature of man, but also in terms of understanding what's going on above.
One last question related to that. That means then that in the Hebrew tradition, then angels can procreate, because otherwise, why to have sex or not?
Right. They're definitely procreating. We don't know if they're having sex the way we have sex, but definitely they're engaged in making more angels. And we do have a sense of, there's a text that talks about the river of fire, and that angels come from the river of fire. Tens and thousands of angels come from the river of fire. So it's a way of creating a population that we don't really understand. But as I said, we're not welcome there. That's not, those texts don't invite us into that. You're welcome.
Rabbi Rosenzweig.
Yeah, I have a rather indiscreet question to ask.
This is Dr. Rosemer, not Rabbi Rosenzweig. Okay, go ahead.
Do you believe in angels literally, or do you view them as the metaphor for the imponderable forces that are at work in our destiny?
Me? I'm going to answer part of your question, and then I'm going to be truthful about why I'm not answering the other part of your question. The part of your question I'm not going to answer is the personal side of it, because I find that through my experience as a teacher, the authority that's given to the person at the front with the microphone it far outweighs, in my opinion, the authority that should be given to me. So I think that that kind of question everyone needs to answer, and I would never presume to put my opinion into that process. I think the information should be part of that process, but not my personal opinion. So I keep my personal beliefs private for that reason. I apologize for not answering that part. The question of whether it's viewed as a metaphor at all, my answer would be that within rabbinic literature, the way to approach anything is always double-tiered, literally and metaphorically. And the rabbis feel a responsibility to make it work on both levels. And therefore, if someone were to approach ancient text and say, this is literally true, then they have fulfilled one of the intents of that document. And if someone were to approach it and say, I understand the metaphor of this and I take meaning from the metaphoric knowledge of this, they have also fulfilled an intent of that document.
Rabbi Rosenzweig.
Very good question. In preparing myself for your lecture tonight, I went through a number of angelic texts in my mind and played a game. Which ones are you going to mention? And there was one that you didn't mention at all, and purely out of curiosity, I'm interested in your take. And that's the confrontation on Mount Sinai between Moses and the various levels of angels as he ascends through the various levels of heaven.
Right.
In his being about to be given the Torah.
Right. It's actually, and I'm glad you're mentioning it, it's in my notes, and I didn't get to it. And also, just generally to let people know, if you're interested in this, I haven't even begun to scratch the surface on these texts. There are so many of them. Just find them, read them, enjoy them. Ancient text is filled with this. The text that the rabbi is referring to is when Moses is brought or goes up to Mount Sinai to receive the commandments. There's a midrash that says they're not given to him. He has to go get them. And he's actually climbing through the realms of the upper realm to get the Torah, and the angels are noticing him. And the phrase, it's a great phrase, they turn to God and they say, excuse me, what's the Son of Man doing here? And they keep saying it again and again and again, because to them, I'm sorry, what's the Son of Woman doing here? And they keep saying it again and again and again, because to them it's an insult. That how is it that someone born to a woman would end up in the upper realms? And so they're trying to insult Moses that way, and they're trying to get God to discipline Moses. This is that sibling thing. And that text beautifully brings out the sibling thing, because they're telling on him. They're turning to God and they're saying, did you see? Did you see? It's the son of a woman. What does he think he's doing over here? And they're telling on God because they want God to discipline Moses and get Moses back down. And when Moses is up there and God says he's here to receive the commandments, they argue and say, why would you give it to him? That's ours. We had that. We had that even before creation. We had that. Why are you suddenly giving it to them? And God turns to Moses and says, defend yourself. And Moses turns to the angels, and now this incredible argument begins, where Moses says to the angels, we need it, you don't. And the angels say, really? Why? And Moses says, well, let me tell you what's in there. It says in there, thou shalt not murder. When's the last time you guys murdered? It says in there, thou shalt not commit adultery. When's the last time you did that? It says in there, and Moses goes through the whole thing. Interesting, isn't it, that Moses knows what's in there, and it hasn't been given yet. And, of course, the idea, why have the angels had it all that time if it isn't relevant? And so you go back to this whole sibling thing again, where what does the parent do at that teaching moment when one child is telling on the other child, hoping the parent will discipline? You turn to the children and you say, work it out. Right? You talk to each other right now. Work this out. And let them figure out what their needs are, and let them approach the other one, understanding what the other needs are, and work it out. And it's a beautiful midrash on exactly that, the sibling rivalry and how all of that gets worked out. So the angels do not want us to have these wonderful treasures that are in the upper realms, and they resent when we get them. And so we have to go and fight for them when we get them and say that we really need them. And that's what that text is discussing.
Dr. Sivak.
Yeah, you started off talking about beings amongst us, and you also speak of angels in an ancient context only. Is there a modern context as well?
Yes.
Is this a recurring idea?
Yes. Within the Jewish world or within the
No,
Christian?
Any world.
Oh, yes.
Not necessarily religious.
Oh, okay. Yes, still. I'm just not sure then how to answer that. I think that anything we have today that can trace into the ancient world, yes, has these concepts. Native Aboriginal peoples with ancient cultures have these concepts. They don't have them in the same way because their text is not the same, their folklore is not the same, their understanding of how the world came to be is not the same. But the idea that there are unseen forces remains the same. The idea that there's a spiritual dynamic realm that we barely know of, that remains the same. So it's prevalent pretty much everywhere. Once we enter academia, we're studying text, we're studying evidence, we're studying peoples, we're studying the faiths that moved forward, rather than making statements about faith and peoples, and we're just studying it all. So within the world of academia, nobody's going to be speculating about really are these elements there. But once you step out of that, pretty much everyone is.
I guess I was thinking of Harry Potter.
Oh. In what way?
Well,
Oh, do we believe in witchcraft? Is that
beings amongst us. Anyway.
right? Whole other lecture, witchcraft.
Yes, lady at the back.
I was wondering, out
Oh,
of
Mary.
curiosity, have you had a chance to see if there's a place for angels within Islam?
Oh, yes, there is. And I have not included Islam. Oh, I'm sorry. The question was, have I had a chance to look at the place of angels within Islam? And I have not included that tonight because the defined area tonight was Judaism and Christianity. Sorry, my throat's starting to hurt. But yes, there is a place for angels within Islam. It is very similar to what we see occurring within the ancient Jewish texts, and to some degree within the development of the church, but less to the extreme in the sense that, as I mentioned, within the church, things begin to sharpen quite a bit because of what is being defined within the realm of the church and not within the realm of the church. And Islam hasn't defined it that sharply. So you do see very much a sense of the ancient Jewish world is there, and a sense of some of the categorizations and some of the understandings within the church without the sharp distinctiveness and focus that the church brings.
Do you find some of the same angels, Gabriel, Michael, or
Only as coming in from the other texts. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I could throw in a question here too. As a professor of literature, I can certainly understand the importance of the metaphoric side of this, but we are living in neither a literary age nor a religious age. And I'm just wondering if it's possible for people who are neither literary nor religious to in any way apprehend the importance of this subject and even understand it.
if we accept that we're not living in a literary age or a religious age, and I'm not sure that I would agree, and I don't know that if you intended it even to be a sort of a universal statement. Thank you. But if we were to accept that, I would say that we're living in an age where popular culture certainly has an interest in the supernatural, and certainly raises just television and movies and music and lyrics, and it's almost as if the generation to come is being inundated with this sense of the supernatural. Within that realm, the question of angels and how all of this functions, I think, also finds its place. So I don't think we're as easily rid of them.
Yes.
You talked a little bit earlier about the angels having concepts that were in conflict with each other. You said there were 5.
I'm sorry, when the angels have, I didn't hear.
When the angels, you said the angels have different concepts within them that are in conflict with each other?
Oh, elements within, yes. Yes.
You said there were 5 of them?
Yes.
So how do you know, where does the issue, the number 5, how are they identified at all?
They're being collected from text. And I read some of the proof texts where God will talk about a particular angel and say that the element is that of lightning. And then we hear God talking about an angel again in another text, and suddenly God's talking about the element is the element of water. And you're looking at that thing, well, either two texts have just contradicted themselves, or in fact we have both of those elements coexisting. And the rabbis, as they always do, this is their methodology, they go back to biblical text and prophetic text, and they pull out information, and they're looking what are all the times God spoke to an angel, and they'll look at all of those, and then they'll say, and what did God identify as a piece of that angel, and they'll collect all those things, and then they'll look for consistency, and they will harmonize between any of the conflicts, and in the end of that process, they've come up with 5. So they're everything they know, they are directing the reader to the text that told them that, and therefore everything is coming from text. But remember that it's a rabbinic text system. So texts don't have to say it outright. In fact, most times they won't say it outright. The rabbis are using literary techniques to tease out their interpretive meanings from the text.
Mr. Adler.
Many of the comments you've made have suggested that angels, in effect, intercede in human events, causing them or at least ameliorating them, warning, and so on. This suggests to me the possibility that people might turn to these angels, specifically trying to propitiate them or trying to induce them to act on our behalf. This strikes me as rather flagrant gloss on the uniqueness of God, the centrality of the role of God in the world. Are there writings which limit the degree to which we're supposed to pay attention to these angels?
Yes, there are. Again, within ancient Israel, one is forbidden to pray to an angel because prayers must be directed only to God. And then the question, of course, becomes what's a prayer and what's a conversation? So if I say something, is that okay? If I ask for something, is that a prayer? If I say to an angel, good job, is that not in fact a thanksgiving prayer of praise? Where's my definition? And hence, the rabbis conclude, it's best that we don't know. It's actually really good that we don't know, because then we would be crossing those lines all the time. So part of the safeguard is to keep us ignorant, because you're absolutely correct. There would be a problem.
Dr. Gutierrez.
Well, I guess it's a question, maybe I can come into one, but if man, meaning women too, we are created to the likeness of God, we are like His essence. Are angels also like the essence of God, and did God created angels, or is not? Did they create it by themselves, or?
Right. Again, according to the ancient texts that try to figure this out, they're created on the second day. They're created by God. Everything in the universe is created by God. They are created on the second day, and there's a beautiful text that talks about how God and two of the angels, and if I'm not mistaken, it's Michael and Gabriel, but I'm not exactly sure, are measuring out the universe to figure out where to put the earth. And so they're standing, measuring the whole thing and trying to decide here, 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 where should we position the thing. And the angels are part of the consulting process, according to this. And, of course, that text I mentioned where even with the creation of humanity, God is consulting the angels, and that's that phrase, let us make humanity in our image. And, of course, all the commentaries notice the plural. Who is God speaking to? What's the us? What is this? And pretty much the accepted answer is it's a consultation with the angels.
I think, thank you. In the Jewish Studies program, and especially in the public lectures, we like to touch on a multiplicity of topics. And I would like to think that while we have to touch on Jewish history, Holocaust, and all the rest, they're all vitally important, a topic like this, a little different, distinctive, and fascinating, especially delivered by a speaker like Rachel, is really very much appreciated, and we thank you very much. But for a fuller thank you, I would like to call on the Dean and acting President of St. Jerome's University, Dr. Tatarin, to thank our speaker.
Thank you. There's a formality to the thanks. It's always a very pleasant opportunity for any speaker to do to express thanks. And usually the formality is you always express thanks for the lecture. And I will do that. But first I have to give personal thanks to Professor Turkienicz. Because as I was sitting there and my embarrassment was rising, she told the story of the traffic jam and the snow, and saying that even when things look bad, when the microphone doesn't work and you're embarrassed as, maybe there's a reason for it, and maybe it's a good reason, but I do apologize. I apologize for the inconvenience of not having the microphone working and the facilities not being up to what they should be. But on a formal level, I have to say that I also was very pleased when I got the notice about today's lecture, Angels, because I myself am from the Eastern Christian background, and for us, the angels are defined as the bodiless powers who are magnificently beautiful, and then you read these texts where they wax poetic about the physical beauty of these bodiless powers. The paradox is amazing, and to have the opportunity to hear someone, a scholar, reflect upon those profound and paradoxical aspects of our human existence, not just of our faith, but of our human existence, is a luxury which all too often is not enjoyed enough by people of our age. So I thank you, Professor Turkienicz, for giving us a wonderful, humorous at times, eloquent, and beautiful lecture, one which evokes the wisdom of the ancients in a way which reminds us that we need to listen to them more. As you were giving your lecture, I thought of something, and that was not of you struggling with the angels, but of you dancing gracefully with the angels. I understand that you're a bit of a dancer, and so I hope you appreciate that that image did come to mind. So thank you very, very much.
Before I invite you to participate in the reception in the room adjoining, I want to echo Dr. Diamond's thanks to St. Jerome's. St. Jerome's has been a real friend to Jewish Studies from the inception. We are delighted with their cooperation, their assistance, and the use of their facilities. So thank you, St. Jerome's, for all of your many kindnesses. Again, I invite you to give me your business card or write your name and email address or telephone number or anything, any information you would like to convey to us so we can keep you informed of future Jewish Studies events. Again, thank you to the Kerbal family for your sponsorship. Always very, very much appreciated, and have a good evening.